one of the great strengths of the 9/11 fund was that we gave every family member or every surviving victim who applied to the fund an opportunity to be heard in confidence, privately, to express their emotions, validate the memory of a lost loved one, express anger and frustration, vent about life's unfairness. Those hearings, I think, were the key to success ultimately.
When you had to decide how much every single life was worth, were you able to be impartial and treat it like a job?
Well, you try and be objective, but unless you have a heart of stone, when you meet some of these families and you hear the sobbing and the horrific impact of the tragedy on real live people, you try and be objective, but I must say, on many occasions, you exercise your discretion and try and provide additional compensation or relief based on what you've heard. It's human nature, I think.
Interested in Charles Wolfe. I know you'll kind of remember him. He kind of founded the Fix the Fund. His wife Catherine, tragically died in the tragedy, and she was actually from Swansea, which is in Wales, where I am now. I'm interested to know what it was like having to look those people in the eye as they were telling you their stories. I think now perhaps we could hide behind an email address or a Twitter account, but you had to face these people and look them in the eye as they were telling you these stories. I'm just interested to know what that was like from your perspective.
That was the most debilitating aspect of the job. I would say the most difficult part of what I did was meeting individual families in private, listening to what they told me. They rarely came to me to talk about money. They came to me to validate the memory of a lost loved one, or to vent against the government and how it could allow this to happen. Angry people. And the emotional overhang of this whole program, the toughest part, just as you say, was meeting with people like Charles Wolfe and listening in an empathetic way as they sobbed and cried about the impact of 9/11 on their life, on their lost loved ones, on the future. I mean, we had to brace ourselves for this part of the job, which really was the most difficult and the most debilitating.
Do you think in some circumstances you were perhaps almost treated more like a therapist or a counsellor then when you had to, face these people and their stories?
Oh, yes. I often say, people say, was your lawyer background helpful? I don't think it was particularly helpful. It didn't hurt, but it was a wash. I don't think it would have been better if I had a divinity degree or a degree in psychiatry. It would have been better had I been a rabbi or a priest. This meeting with individuals, I mean, the stories I heard. Mr. Feinberg, I lost my husband. He was a fireman. He rescued 40 people from the World Trade Center. And then, while he was running across the World Trade Center plaza to safety, he was killed when somebody jumped from the 103rd floor of the World Trade Center and hit him like a missile, killing them both. If he had taken one step either way, Mr. Feinberg, he'd be alive today. Don't tell me there's a God. No God would allow my husband to die this way. And I mean, you heard story after story after story like that, and it couldn't help but impact you. Just 20 years ago, that fund demonstrated how we are one nation, one people working together. No red states, blue states, liberal, conservative, labor, none of that. The 9/11 fund was bipartisan. It represented one, frankly, international community, all working together to help the victims. That was 20 years ago. I think today there are so many people that don't remember 9/11 or are too young to remember 9/11. And I want those folks around the world to see what government can do when we all work together and aren't at each other's political and cultural throat. And that is a great example, I think, the 9/11 fund, of how in times of stress and crisis, citizens come together and work together to help come to the rescue of innocent victims. There, but for fortune, it could be any one of us.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.